And you know, from a political perspective, that from a civilian point of view, that Egyptians have lost faith in many of the institutions in the United States except the military. We've always seen the military. I'm not talking about the political leadership. I'm talking just about people like me. They looked at the U.S. Army, the Pentagon, as a prime supporter of the Egyptian army and of Egypt at large. Do you see that this is continuing, or do we look at what is happening in terms of what's happening in the Senate and so on as this support is drawing back?
I think the message that I would want to send to the Egyptian people is that our military to military relationships are going to remain very strong. They have for a long period of time, and certainly I am very committed to that. In my meetings with the leadership yesterday, both your political and your military leadership, we certainly emphasize that. But I think it's important to understand that the relationship between our two countries is very deep. It is very robust. There are lots of different areas and planes on which we are collaborating, and there are certainly going to be disagreements along the way. But the important part is that we can work through these disagreements. So Bright Star is a good example. We stopped doing that exercise 8 years ago. We've now restarted it because we recognize it's in both of our interests. We are collaborating right now in counterterrorism in ways that we have not in the past. And this is a very, very positive sign. We are moving forward on technical interoperability agreements like we have not in the past. These are all things that were in the past had been points that we had some friction on, and now we're moving forward with this. So, you know, with this current challenge on the assistance and stuff like that.
Aren't you concerned a bit? I mean, Egypt was totally relying on U.S. armaments till recently. This new diversification of weaponry, is it worrying, or is it a subject of concern?
I think it should be worrying to Egypt. It's worrying to us. I mean, I think when you procure equipment from a variety of different resources, you make it very difficult to sustain it and train on it and manage it over time. So we certainly think there's a benefit to being interoperable and sharing similar equipment here as we move forward. So from a military standpoint, yes, I take your point very seriously, and we would certainly prefer that our very best partners in the region, we have good interoperability with them. So
but we know that politics has interfered in this issue and has made it a bit difficult for Egypt to rely totally on U.S. armaments.
There are, yes, and that may be the case, but we also have some mechanisms here. There are some upcoming meetings in Washington where we'll be talking about our long-term relationship and the security assistance aspect of that, and how we continue to lay out a roadmap for moving forward. I think it's very important that we continue to have very frank and candid discussions about the capabilities that Egypt needs, and how we get to how we try to provide those for you through these programs. There certainly are areas that we have some disagreements on, and I think those have been articulated. I believe we're working through those. So I certainly had an opportunity to talk about that yesterday with your leadership. And we'll continue to do our best to work through these things.
That's exactly my point here. I mean, you've met with President Sisi yesterday, and you've had a discussion, and I guess this is not the first time that you've met. This
is our third meeting.
Your third meeting, and this time it's taking place while the exercises are happening, that they're coming back. So what's the difference in that third meeting, and how do you see the exchange that's going to be happening in the near future?
Well, I think what we've tried to do just in the time that I've been in this position, and again, I'm building upon the great work that was done by my predecessors, but what we tried to do is, working with General Higazi and the armed forces, and certainly with the support of the President, we tried to identify some very specific things that we want to move forward on. So Bright Star was an example of this. We've all agreed that we wanted to get this exercise back on track, and so we have. And I do recognize it's a little bit smaller than, it's much smaller than it has been in the past, but it's much more focused on the relevant threats, and we'll continue to grow that and expand it. But we'll want to keep it focused on the relevant challenges. We've moved forward in counterterrorism. This is another area. The technical agreements that we've talked about. These are all areas that we have identified together, collaboratively, that we want to move forward on, and we have. And so I think the key is to make sure that we have frank and candid discussions. We identify where friction points are in our very deep relationship, and we concentrate on working through those. This isn't a relationship that has just lasted a year. This has lasted decades, and it will last decades into the future. And we're gonna continue to do our best to work through all these.